blessed sons and daughters of God, as the Chohan of the first ray, I, El Morya, greet you into the fullness of the blue flame of the will of God. For that is what is surrounding you at this moment. A charged atmosphere, carrying the will of your God presence and the momentum of my blue flame as the power of God, sealing you in the protective envelope of all your vehicles of consciousness, so that no thing will assault you outside of yourself. But that brings us to the point of how to draw forth the will of God. It is not always what assaults you from your outer circumstances in life that challenges the very will of God within you. It is what is within your own vehicles of consciousness. What is hidden between the folds of your garments. What you have neglected to put into the violet transmuting flame to be consumed by the love of God. All of these things, blessed ones, you must consider. Separate you from knowing the fullness of the will of God. That means the divine plan of your life stream. What is the divine destiny that you were intended to carry out and ultimately achieve? Could it be that you somehow lost your way along the path to that ultimate victory? Did you forget who you were? Did you allow for outer consciousness to seep into your consciousness that was less than the vibration of the Christ light or the truth of cosmic law? Did you entertain habits and things of the world that seem to be oh so beautiful and tantalizing to the senses, only to find out that at the core of your own heart flame there was a distaste for those allurements? And have you truly felt your own heart flame to even have the co-measurement? That you must always be keenly aware of. For when you engage in the will of God, and it is released in its full, all-powerful, you, blessed ones, must be able to guide it, guard it, and direct it with the truth of cosmic law, the wisdom ray of illumination's flame, and for the love of God. In all cases, for the will of God is not to be played with, trifled with, and then cast aside when you have lost interest, thinking that, well, perhaps there is something else upon the earth that will give you greater power, that will feed your human ego, will stroke your human pride. But there is no power on earth that can hold a candle to the single flame upon the altar of your heart that carries the will of God. For it is that flame, blessed ones, that is the entree into the fullness of all that your God presence holds for you. And ultimately, the allness of God. Therefore, it is all important that you prepare yourself in thought, in emotion, in your deeds, to be able to grasp and hold on to the will of God. It is not enough to merely say, oh, I wish the will of God into my life. I will the will of God into my life. I hope for the will of God in my life. But if there are those resistances, rebellions, and recalcitrant energies that are within your outer vehicles, the will of God will not only not come forth in full measure of what is needed at any given hour, but it will not take, for the chalice will not have been prepared. There will not be enough love of God to be the magnet to hold fast to that will. There will be a sense of separation, that somehow God is outside of you, and you are here all alone, wrestling with the affairs of your life. When at any given moment, if you were to be in that vibration that allows for that small flame, but oh so mighty, that resides upon the altar of your heart, to leap into action and draw forth from the reservoir of your own God presence, from the hierarchy of the blue flame of the will of God, from mighty Hercules himself, all that would be needed in that moment, in that hour, for you to be God victorious, for you to stand, face, and conquer. And at the close of the day, know that it was the presence of God that came upon you in that glorious outpouring of the allness of God that you were able to count on. You held up your end of the bargain, of the vow that you made when you came into incarnation, to remember your high and holy calling, to remember who you are, to hold fast to that vibration that streams forth in all purity from the heart of your God presence. Those who complain and cry, woe is me, have forgotten the very first tenet of who they are. They have been given a voice, the power center of the throat chakra with which to call forth the power and the will of God, the divine essence of the mighty I Am presence, to come into their outer vehicles at any given time. And it is the I Am that commands that will. And when you call forth, I am God victorious, I am God will, I am the fullness of God love. The power of your God presence streams forth at your command, for that is the office as a son and daughter of God that you have been given. The threefold flame upon the altar of your heart is that edifice, that stone upon which that altar was built, that the name of God is written upon, and the flame living, breathing in the pranic breath that has been entrusted to these outer vehicles, allows for the will, the love, and the wisdom of God to come to the fore, and for you to act upon the slightest desires of your God presence at any given time. And should you be headed into harm's way, it is through that threefold flame that you are given the opportunity to hear the voice of God, go this way or that, but deviate from where you are at this moment. You may not know why, but your life, as you know it, may have been changed because you listened. It might have been saved. How many lifetimes must you have to learn the fundamental teaching that the will of God is good for you? It is the most glorious gift. For when your God presence streams forth divine direction for your life stream, you must know that it is for the highest and best good of your life to adhere to every word, every emanation, every feeling that you receive into your feeling world, every step that you are guided to take. What remains is, can you decipher what is the will of God? You have been in embodiment many, many incarnations, more than you would care to know. And your outer vehicles have taken on a life of their own, amassing their own will, their own karmic patterns, their own desires. And so how do you truly know what is the will of the mind of God, or the desiring of the heart of God? You know, blessed ones, because you do the work. And what is the work? You establish a vibration within your outer vehicles that is in rapport with the threefold flame of your heart. You know intimately that flame. How do you know that flame? Because of all of the masses of thoughts that go flying by every moment of every day, or the slightest energy welling up inside you of resentments or irritations, or the habits, seemingly benign, but in the final analysis for the good of your life stream, are continuing to weave unreality. And therefore, these outer vehicles must be retrained. when the outer consciousness has enough of the impetus of the flame upon the altar of the heart to ask, where can I go to learn the truth of who I am? Who is I am? And what does I am have in store for me? And that is enough of an invitation that if you are truly in earnest with your desire, you will be led to the teaching of the ascended masters that will help you to reacquire the very vibration that you were vested in even with your first incarnation, before the amassing of karma that you daily must transmute even now, before the habits that you had built up that must be transmuted and changed into habits of good, healthy, wholesome, vibrant, sanctified by the light. And when you are at harmony in your feeling world, there is no longer room in your life for those irritations that would keep you separated and apart from the presence of God. There is no longer hatred for life, for you understand that loving God in life, in harmony, will solve every circumstance that is presented to you to overcome. So then you must ask yourself, how do you achieve it? What is it that will allow you to go from vehicles of consciousness that seem to be separated from God, unable to hear or feel the flame upon the altar of the heart, training, blessed ones? Your vehicles must be trained. When you know of my retreat, my office in the Brotherhood of Light, holding the momentum for the earth on the blue flame of the will of God, you can call to come to my altar, to my retreat, to learn firsthand as you sleep at night what it will take for you to change your life, to put on the garments of light that are your rightful vestments, to behold with your eyes the beauty and the vision for your life stream that is solely the vision your own God presence is holding for you. To be able to have the assurance, the faith in your God presence that you know at any moment The presence will awaken you to what is going on in your vehicles of consciousness in the day-to-day life when you need to be alerted and draw upon the light of the presence to solve a circumstance, to go before you to clear the energy in a room, to establish a force field round about you that is the power of God in the blue flame to protect you as you move through the marketplace and all manner of energies that are less than the vibration of your Christhood. You can call upon the violet flame, one of the greatest gifts of all, to transmute all of the records of your many incarnations, all of the habits of your many incarnations, all of the thoughts that are unhealthy that you allow to permeate your mind can go into the flame and make room for the mind of God. But these vehicles must be trained. They must know what is expected of them. They are poised and ready to respond to the Christ command, the flame upon the altar of your heart. They know who is Lord and Master ultimately. But if you have forgotten and you do not give the call, if you do not let your vehicles know what your mighty I Am presence expects, then they will continue to be a law unto themselves. And the will of God will go begging for some other time in the history of your lifespan. Perhaps the next embodiment, you will be more eager, more in earnest to live the best life that you can live by adhering to the will of God, preparing for that will of God, expecting the will of God, and knowing with certainty that the will of God is all-powerful and resides upon the altar of your heart. And when you are fully galvanized in the will of God, there is no power that can defeat the will of God, for it draws upon the full hierarchy all the way to the great I Am of every blue flame that burns brightly, exercising the patterns of God identity that will have no other identity save that which is the will of the I Am. So when you say I am, make sure that in that fiat you are giving power of your God presence to that which is the will of God, and that you are able to stand for all eternity Oh, there may be a few times when you will have errors in judgment as you are fine-tuning your ability to know what is the will of God. But just as quickly as you are aware of it, you call upon the violet flame so that you can erase that record on the instant, so that it does not have a chance to reenact its fallacy in your life, so that you know what it means to be in that hallowed space, the rarefied atmosphere of God, calling God forth, anchoring God in your life, and having the power of God at your command. That is why, blessed ones, I have been able to stand in the blue flame of the will of God in my many incarnations. I was tested beyond measure of how to be God victorious in times when there was far less civilization than there is in this era, even though one might question what is going on the earth this very day. But nonetheless, blessed hearts, it matters not in what era you are incarnated. The tests to know the will of God are the same. You must be able to stand in the fullness of the power of God, vested with the shield of that will, so that as you move through your day, the forces of unreality turn about face and run, for they see the will of God coming, and they know they are defeated before they ever come close to your life stream. What is at the core of that will that allows so much God power? It is the love for God. For if you do not love God, you will not love the will of God. There must be a great magnet within you that desires a closer communion with God, a love that is beyond any earthly love you have ever imagined or ever experienced. It is a love that is all-consuming. And in that consummation of the love of God, you become the will of God. No longer do you entertain anything outside of that will. Your vestments are set, your shield in place. The sword Excalibur is glinting in the sunlight, announcing the truth by its diamond shining essence, and it's cleaving asunder all unreality by the emerald ray of its emanation. And you, blessed hearts, are no longer fit for the earthy, the emotional emotions, or the unhealthy mind. For you have adopted a new way of life, one that sets you apart. There are those that have said they are a chosen people. You could say that is the case for you when you have become consumed with the fullness of the will of God. For you no longer are entertained by lesser states of consciousness or vibrations that do not rise to the level of the beauty, the joy, the effervescence of the light in which you reside. Your appetites have changed. You have discovered your mighty I Am presence. You have discovered a life that is hallowed and sacred, and you would not despoil that life or sully it with any lesser state of vibration. So you work mightily to keep your vibration in that hallowed space. You are constantly training your outer vehicles. You are holding the guard consciousness so that you do not fall sway to any encroachment. How do you suppose I was able to accomplish in my embodiments mastery on the will of God? When you know the presence of God, you are ruined for the earthy, for the emotionalism of the water element, for all of the fanciful ideas. But you take on then a new awareness of what the elements mean to you. And that will be a point of the discovery of this cycle for your life stream, and how the very vibration of your outer vehicles is elevated into the rarefied atmosphere of your holy Christ presence. That is the will of God. Every mighty I Am presence has that singular desire that the outer vehicle of their son, their daughter, will take on that vibration and begin to move within the unified vehicle of consciousness of the whole of the I Am. That is when life takes on its most glorious estate for the individual that has been God victorious in living up to the desire of their God presence. You ask, is it possible, truly possible, to be incarnate in the earth, to wear these outer vehicles, to rub elbows with all manner of individuals in the earth, of other persuasions, of other vibrations, and hold fast to the vibration of the will of God? It is indeed, blessed ones. And that is what the training is all about. That is why you must strive mightily to overcome First, the limitations within your own mind that say you are only a human being. You are a sinner. You are not worthy of God. Such a lie that has been heaped upon humanity. You, blessed ones, are born of the divine parentage. You have the flame of God burning upon the altar of your heart. You have spiritual centers within you that are waiting to be charged by that light of your God presence daily, so that you can stretch forth your hand, your heart, your head, in the service to God and life. That's what it means to be in the will of God. No more precious state of being is there. That is why, when a little child is born, in their infancy so pure, all gravitate to that infant. They want to touch it, so that maybe some of that purity will rub off on them. But each one has a greater purity than even a newborn infant that resides upon the altar of their heart. And if you desire the will of God, get to know your own heart flame. Go into meditation, and then, with the power of the throat chakra, call forth the divine decrees and affirmations that have been given to you by the Brotherhood of Light, so that you can have the engrams, the thohat, to release the rays from your own God presence and from the ascended and cosmic beings to assist you. I, Morya, could not have achieved my many victories throughout most of my incarnations had it not been for the will of God. You know my embodiments. I need not rehearse them at this time. But you can look at the patterns of that or those lives and see the initiations, those cycles that could have been turning points in my life, where I could have lost it all in that incarnation. And with my own defeat, let down thousands of life streams, if not millions later on, that would draw upon my record. So you see, blessed ones, you are setting an example. For you know not how many that will follow in your footsteps, will know the will of God that you have come to know. They will study the words, the momentum of God consciousness that is released from this altar hundreds, if not thousands of years from now, if the stewards of the teaching do their job wisely, passing the torch. For this teaching is timeless. just as you arc in your consciousness back to thousands of years ago in the texts that have been left as a guidepost, as a directing intelligence of God for you to follow. Those truths hold just as dear today as they did 3,000 years ago. Look at the record that will go on for thousands of years from this point. Not in every era is there the opportunity to have the veil so drawn aside to expose the truth of cosmic law, as you witness in this cycle, this time, this momentum from the altar of the temple of the Most High. Hold fast to the gifts that you are given. Rehearse them over and over again so that you will not forget, so that you can train these outer vehicles to remember who they are, to respond to the flame of God, to be the will of God, so that thousands of years from now, you will stand head and shoulders above most of humanity as having witnessed and exhibited a way of life that can be lived, even while in embodiment, as the will of God. Let the light from the blue flame of my altar so be released upon the earth, and that of the hierarchy of every ascended and cosmic being, of Archangel Michael, to be released into the earth this day at my command, so that the will of God will be known far and wide to those who truly are willing to have the communion with the presence of God. Let that will shine forth in each individual's life, proclaiming the truth of who they are, so that when the power of God must be released for their victory, they are in alignment with the will of God, and no other energy will be conducted through their vehicles of consciousness save that which is pure and the will of God. I am Morya, am most grateful for the opportunity to be the Chohan of the first ray, and I give honor to the hierarchy of light for this opportunity for the sons and daughters of God to have the closer communion by my presence and my momentum. Glory to God, the divine will of God, the great I am.